The power of introversion, understanding your inner world. You were always observant, but people mistook it for shyness. You had discernment, yet they labeled it as avoidance. You were never broken, but society treated you like something that needed fixing. This is because you don't chase after noise and you don't rush to speak. You find more meaning in silence than others do in chaos. Carl Jung didn't call this a flaw, he called it orientation, a deep psychological compass pointing inward. It's not because you fear the world, but because you're designed to experience it profoundly. Jung believed that introversion is more than just a personality trait, it's a spiritual posture. It's a refusal to be consumed by external factors and an instinct to protect your inner world, even when the outside world demands your attention. It's not about withdrawing, it's about preserving. Introverts don't disappear because they can't handle the world, they step back to process things on a level that most people don't even notice. The noise that others need to feel alive overwhelms them, and surface-level conversations that are passed off as connection drain them. The ongoing societal demands to stay visible, perform consistently, please others on a whim, and engage socially whenever expected often leave introverts feeling drained rather than energized. This is because introverts navigate life through a different lens. They don't rely on external validation to feel valued. They aren't naturally drawn to being the center of attention, nor do they measure self-worth by outshouting the room. What truly unsettles the world, however, is the introvert's resistance to manipulation through superficial norms. They possess a heightened awareness, they observe details others overlook, empathize deeply with emotions, and intuitively detect insincerity, even if they don't voice it outright. Picture this, in a bustling crowd, an introvert might sit quietly, absorbing not just words but the unspoken tension or joy behind them. They don't merely listen, they sense the subtext, the pauses, the hidden narratives. This isn't a sign of weakness. It's a form of quiet strength rooted in intuition. Yet, this strength comes with challenges. Many introverts spend their early years wondering if there's something inherently wrong with them for feeling overwhelmed in group settings. They may feel physically drained after casual conversations, preferring one heartfelt dialogue over countless shallow exchanges. Society often mislabels their sensitivity as being too emotional, their need for solitude as too distant, and their thoughtful demeanor as too serious. But this isn't a flaw, it's simply a different way of existing in a world that often prioritizes noise over depth. Carl Jung perceived a more profound dimension to introversion. In his view, introverts aren't merely quiet individuals, they are explorers of inner realms. They traverse invisible landscapes that others cannot access. Their process extends beyond simple thinking to deep contemplation. Rather than just experiencing emotions, they fully immerse in them. Instead of casual observation, they thoroughly incorporate what they witness into their being. This profound internal richness cannot flourish amid constant external stimulation. Jung recognized introversion as providing essential counterbalance in a society obsessed with clamor. He viewed it as a stabilizing force within a culture perpetually chasing forward movement. After all, society requires those who listen attentively while others vocalize. It needs individuals who thoughtfully consider while others immediately respond. It benefits from people who maintain stability while others exhaust themselves. Unfortunately, our society rarely values these qualities. Instead, it celebrates extroversion. It praises volume mistakenly equated with self-assurance, rapidity incorrectly associated with intellectual capacity, and superficial pleasantness confused with genuine human connection. Consequently, introverts learn to adapt. They don protective personas. They display artificial cheerfulness. They continue to participate socially even when emotionally depleted. They push forward, striving to meet the expectations of a world that often equates busyness with worthiness. Yet, this effort comes at a hidden cost, endured in quiet exhaustion, in emotional depletion, and in a nagging sense of inadequacy that whispers, "Why can't I be more like others?" But here's the catch, that guilt isn't a reflection of your flaws. It's a sign that you're bending your true self to fit a performance script written by someone else. Over time, This dissonance erodes your sense of identity. You might start to label yourself as antisocial, convince yourself there's something broken about you, or shrink into a shadow of who you really are. But let this truth sink in, something many introverts, like the writer Susan Cain, would emphasize: there's no mistake in who you are. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to become more lively to belong. And you certainly don't need to force yourself out of your comfort zone. That comfort zone, your quiet space, isn't a cage. It's a safe haven where you recharge. Your silence isn't a void, it's a process of integration. Think of it this way: introverts don't simply retreat from the world, they step back to rebuild their inner strength. What appears as solitude is actually a deliberate act of self-renewal. What looks like stillness is the work of healing and reflection. Imagine a tree shedding its leaves in autumn. From the outside, it seems like decay, but beneath the surface, it's preparing for new growth. Similarly, introverts use their alone time to process experiences, gain clarity, and return to the world with deeper insight. This quiet power is why introverts often become the unsung leaders in any room, not because they demand attention, but because they create a space for others to feel seen and understood. Their presence isn't about taking over, it's about holding the space for meaningful connection. So, if you're an introvert feeling like you're falling short, remember, your way of being isn't a weakness. It's a strength that the world desperately needs. They do not seek to overpower, rather, they provide stability. They have the unique ability to recognize patterns that often go unnoticed by others. They make connections that many people overlook. When they choose to express their thoughts, it carries weight because they have taken the time to contemplate their ideas before sharing them. This is true power. It's not about being reactive or putting on a show, it's about being deliberate and thoughtful. In a fast-paced world that often rushes ahead without consideration, this kind of mindful presence is indeed a rarity. You were not designed to simply amplify the noise of the world around you. Instead, you were created to listen for the subtle nuances that others may have forgotten to acknowledge. This encapsulates the essence of introversion. It is not a flaw within the system, rather, it is an essential component of the balance of humanity. When you begin to embrace this aspect of yourself and stop feeling the need to apologize for it, something remarkable occurs. You cease to hide your true self. You no longer feel compelled to force yourself into a rhythm that was never meant for you. Instead, you reconnect with your innermost self, the serene space within where the noise fades away, yet everything feels profoundly authentic. While Carl Jung did not originate the idea of introversion, he certainly infused it with depth and meaning. During an era when the field of psychology was predominantly focused on observable behaviors, what individuals do, how they act, and how they present themselves, Carl Jung shifted the emphasis inward. He encouraged a deeper exploration not only of the external expressions people display but also of the internal experiences they harbor. Jung proposed that introversion should not merely be viewed as a social inclination, rather, he considered it to be a fundamental aspect of one's consciousness. While many psychologists define personality through actions and behaviors, Jung took a different approach by defining it in terms of directionality. Extroverts, he noted, tend to engage actively with the outside world, while introverts are more inclined to turn their attention inward, focusing on their own thoughts and feelings. This inclination is not simply a matter of personal choice, it is akin to a psychic compass that guides individuals in how they process information, where they derive their energy, and what they fear losing. For introverts, energy is not replenished through external stimulation, instead, it is conserved through personal space and solitude. They often find external noise, particularly emotional disturbances, to be overwhelming. This is not a sign of weakness, rather, it reflects the richness of their inner world, which is already filled with thoughts, memories, images, emotions, and reflections. Unlike those who may skim the surface of life, introverts engage deeply with their experiences. Every interaction leaves a mark on them, every conversation resonates in their minds, and every glance, word, and shift in energy is meticulously recorded, analyzed, and contemplated. This profound way of engaging with the world is what Jung referred to as depth orientation. Introverts are more than just inward-focused, they are deeply inward-feeling. This consistent inner activity requires solitude to maintain balance. However, in today's fast-paced world, solitude is often mistaken for failure, quietness is confused with disengagement, and introversion is wrongly seen as a sign of emotional immaturity. This distortion, as Jung warned, occurs when a society obsessed with action forgets the value of stillness, leading to the shaming of those who embody it. Jung developed his psychological typology system to address this imbalance. Introversion and extroversion, in his view, were not rigid categories but rather dynamic energy patterns, ways the mind orients itself in response to life. But there's more depth to it. Jung paired these orientations with what he referred to as the four psychological functions: thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. He believed each person has a dominant function, a primary lens through which they experience the world. Importantly, each function can operate in either an introverted or extroverted manner. This is where the understanding of introverts becomes both more nuanced and more commonly misunderstood. For instance, an introverted thinker isn't just someone who is quiet, they inhabit a private, abstract, and highly self-reflective mental world. Similarly, an introverted feeler isn't simply sensitive, their emotional depth is inwardly focused, often unseen by others. This complexity highlights the richness of introversion, far beyond the surface-level assumptions society often makes. Introverts possess a profound, often imperceptible value system that directs their every action without requiring external approval. An introverted intuitive individual isn't merely creative, they are attuned to symbolic significance, future potential, and unconscious cues that frequently go unnoticed by others. An introverted sensor isn't simply down-to-earth, they are silently rooted in their experiences and seldom speak unless the situation truly warrants it. Each variety of introvert wields a distinct form of internal strength. However, they all share one common trait: they internally process the world before responding to it externally. That pause, that silence, that withdrawal isn't distance, it's decoding. Yet, society doesn't wait for decoding. It rewards instant reactions, quick answers, high productivity, and loud presence. Consequently, introverts are often compelled to pretend, to speak before they're prepared, to agree when they disagree, to show up when their energy is drained, and to feign emotional engagement when they're in a state of deep inner processing. This performance isn't sustainable over time. It creates a superficial compliance while exhaustion lurks beneath the surface. You become someone others rely on, but someone you can't even recognize. You become the helpful one, the dependable one, the calm one. But internally, you're yearning for space. Jung comprehended this internal struggle. He believed that when an individual lives too long outside their natural orientation, the unconscious begins to revolt. It manifests in dreams, irritability, fatigue, and a loss of meaning, along with symptoms that seem random but are actually signals for realignment. This is because the psyche is not neutral, it seeks balance and integrity. If you ignore your inner rhythm for too long, your system will start to resist. Jung viewed this as a psychological initiation, a pivotal moment when one must choose between the constructed image of themselves and the buried truth. For introverts, this often involves reclaiming what they sacrificed to survive: the right to say no, the right to solitude, the right to process things slowly, the right to not always be available, and the right to speak only when something meaningful needs to be said. Most importantly, it means the right to be whole without being loud. While the world may not always understand introversion, the psyche does, and it will not abandon you for being quiet. Instead, it will urge you to stop abandoning yourself. When Jung described individuation, the journey of becoming your true self, he wasn't talking about transforming into someone new. He meant returning to your original rhythm, voice, and innate knowledge that got buried under layers of expectations and performance. For introverts, individuation means learning to move at your own pace, even if the world rushes by. It involves creating inner safety so you no longer need external validation to feel real. It means establishing boundaries that protect your energy, not because you are weak, but because your depth deserves safeguarding. Once you start living this way, everything changes. You stop pretending. You cease to justify your feelings and stop apologizing for your pace of life. Instead, you start to live authentically, not in a loud or ostentatious way, but in a manner that is genuinely true to yourself. There is a price to pay for not embracing your true identity. This cost may not always be overtly dramatic or demanding attention, rather, it manifests subtly over time. You might notice it in the way your body tenses when others place excessive expectations on you. You may feel a heaviness in your chest after social encounters that seem forced or unnatural. You might find yourself smiling during conversations, yet feeling a part of you drifting further away inside. This experience represents the quiet burnout that many introverts face, not from overexertion, but from the pressure of being more than they can comfortably manage for too many people. The facade of extroversion can only be maintained for a limited time before it begins to show signs of wear. What emerges is not merely fatigue, it is a profound sense of disconnection. You may find that the joy you once derived from familiar comforts begins to fade. Gradually, you start to feel detached from your own core self. You agree to things even when your inner voice is screaming for you to decline. You may attend events or gatherings, but your presence feels hollow. You engage in social interactions, yet afterwards, you are left feeling empty. Carl Jung cautioned us about a significant issue. He posited that when individuals live in a way that contradicts their inherent nature, their unconscious mind begins to push back. This rebellion is not overtly aggressive, rather, it manifests in a steady, persistent manner. Initially, the signs may be subtle, such as trouble focusing, unexplained feelings of irritability, or a nagging sense that something is amiss, even when everything appears to be in order. If these signals are overlooked for an extended period, they can escalate into more serious symptoms. You might experience numbness, anxiety, or fatigue that remains despite adequate rest, along with an increasing sensation that you are merely going through the motions of someone else's life. This scenario often unfolds when an introverted person sacrifices their authentic self in pursuit of social acceptance. When you strive to fulfill every expectation, respond to every message, and attend every gathering, your internal system begins to deteriorate, not in a sudden, dramatic fashion, but gradually and quietly. Eventually, you may find that you no longer recognize who you are. You have morphed into a version of yourself that others find more palatable, yet in doing so, you have lost touch with the part of you that truly feels alive. This phenomenon illustrates the repercussions of neglecting your natural rhythm. Introversion encompasses more than just energy levels, it is intricately linked to your identity. It influences how you process emotions, experience closeness, and derive meaning from life. When this essential aspect of yourself is suppressed, your existence can feel empty, even if it appears full on the surface. You might be in a relationship yet feel isolated, achieving your goals but finding them unfulfilling, or surrounded by people who fail to truly see you. This disconnect arises not because you are intentionally hiding, but because the version of yourself that others have come to accept is not your true self. Over time, you may start to internalize this facade, believing that it is all you are. Consider a role, a presence that's always there yet seldom speaks. This is the image of someone who's ever present but never fully alive. Carl Jung recognized this phenomenon of inner fragmentation. When we betray our authentic selves, we create an internal rift. The outer persona continues to function, while the inner self gradually fades away. The longer this disconnection persists, the more difficult it becomes to reconcile these two aspects of ourselves. We begin to forget the essence of true connection, doubting our instincts, and viewing our depth as a burden rather than a treasure. This is the tragedy of repressed introversion. We start to withdraw not because the world demands it, but because we mistakenly believe that shrinking is the only way to gain acceptance. Consequently, we find ourselves questioning the authenticity of our relationships, feeling that our work lacks meaning, and viewing our lives as a mere performance. Yet, the solution isn't found in the external world but within. It's in the part of us that still remembers the value of slowness, the part that yearns for quietness over noise. This inner voice is the key to re-establishing a genuine connection with ourselves and the world around us. There's a part of us that feels more at peace in just 10 minutes of quiet reflection than in hours of conversation. This inner self doesn't crave escape, but instead longs to return to its own rhythm. Jung believed this core essence never fades, even when we neglect it, abandon it, or betray it to fit into society's expectations. It waits patiently, holding on to hope that we'll eventually listen. But when we finally do, the journey back is challenging because we've become accustomed to masking our true selves through relationships, obligations, and social roles. If we stop pretending to conform, things begin to shift. Some connections may fade, invitations might vanish, and old patterns could dissolve. Yet this isn't loss, it's liberation. You're not abandoning what you need, you're releasing the tools that once kept you alive. In their place, something deeper emerges, stillness that nurtures rather than isolates, boundaries that protect without guilt, and presence that thrives when we choose to stop living divided. Jung called this process individuation, the quiet awakening of becoming whole. For the introvert, it means reclaiming the right to be still in a world that values noise over silence. Imagine a moment where your true self, unfiltered and unguarded, finally speaks, not through performance, but through authenticity. Reclaiming your ability to engage in deep thought in a society that prioritizes immediate responses is essential. It's about taking back your right to experience emotions that may be difficult to articulate. It's about embracing your completeness without the need for external validation. You don't have to fade into the background, instead, you should reconnect with the person you were before you started to feel like you were either too much or not enough at the same time. That authentic version of yourself is still present, patiently waiting for you to acknowledge it. You don't have to amplify your voice, what you truly need is clarity in your expression. It's not about having a larger circle of friends, it's about seeking deeper truths. You don't need to be acknowledged by everyone around you, what's crucial is to stop concealing your true self. This marks a pivotal moment for those who identify as introverts, not when you learn to blend in, but when you realize that you never had to conform in the first place. Carl Jung posited that true wholeness is achieved not through conformity but through integration, by accepting and embodying the complete essence of who you are, even if it doesn't align with societal expectations. The reality is that you are not deficient in any way. You are not antisocial, nor are you overly quiet. You are not slow, dull, cold, or aloof. Rather, you are simply attuned to a different wavelength, experiencing the world in your unique way. While many individuals chase after excitement, you find your fulfillment in resonance. Where others strive for acknowledgement, your quest is for deeper meaning. Unlike those who engage in conversation merely to connect, you experience emotions profoundly before expressing them. You are not lagging behind, rather, you exist in a different realm. You dwell beneath the clamor, the haste, and the superficiality that ensnares so many throughout their lives. This depth of understanding is your unique strength, but it can only be embraced if you cease to apologize for it. The reality is that the world is in dire need of introverts now more than ever. It craves individuals who can embrace stillness, those who can think critically beyond fleeting trends. It seeks those who do not require a performance to validate their worth, who take the time to reflect before they respond, and who listen with the intent to comprehend rather than merely to reply. We find ourselves in an era characterized by overwhelming stimulation and emotional turmoil, where conversations abound yet often lack substance. In a landscape where everyone seems to be watching, few truly observe. Connection has morphed into a performance, and genuine presence has become a rarity. Into this chaotic environment, you offer a distinct form of healing. Your quiet is not absence. It is presence without ego. Your pause is not hesitation. It is respect for truth. Your solitude is not rejection. It is where your soul meets itself. You are not meant to keep up with the pace. You are meant to slow it down. You are not meant to match the volume. You are meant to ground the frequency. This is not weakness. This is strength that no one can fake. But only if you stop shrinking. Only if you stop betraying your rhythm to keep up with a race that was never yours to run. Only if you stop silencing your wisdom just because it speaks more softly than the rest. Because when you do that, when you stop trying to change your nature and start building your life around it, everything shifts. You stop forcing relationships that drain you. You stop showing up for things that don't nourish you. You stop abandoning your depth to meet the expectations of shallow systems. And you start creating something real. You establish boundaries that stand firm without requiring justification. You cultivate environments where authenticity can flourish naturally. You nurture connections that feel genuine rather than rehearsed. You construct an existence that truly mirrors your essence, not the sanitized persona others approved of, but the raw, unfiltered self you once hid to gain approval. That authentic core remains within you, growing restless from years of suppression. As psychologist James Hollis observed, the real tragedy lies not in mortality but in lives half-lived. For introverts especially, this often manifests as perpetual participation without true recognition, physically present yet emotionally invisible. This pattern ends today. Embrace your right to move at your own rhythm. Honor your capacity for profound emotional resonance. Grant yourself permission to exit overwhelming situations, whether leaving social gatherings early or claiming quiet moments in nature. Celebrate your heightened sensitivity to subtleties others overlook, the weight of unspoken tensions, the poetry in ordinary moments. Your distinctive nature isn't accidental but intentional. What society might label as limitations are actually navigational tools. Like a sailor trusting true north, following your inherent traits consistently will guide you toward shores where vitality replaces exhaustion. Picture a colleague who transforms team dynamics through quiet observation rather than loud participation, or a friend whose thoughtful pauses create space for deeper conversations. These aren't compromises, they're blueprints for sustainable fulfillment. Your differences form a living map charting the course back to your undiluted self, patiently waiting where authenticity meets peace. Imagine a space that doesn't require you to be someone you're not. A place where your quiet moments are understood, and simply being there is more than sufficient. You are not flawed, nor are you lacking in any way. In fact, you embody the very qualities that this world has often overlooked. However, it's not essential for the world to recognize your worth. What truly matters is that you acknowledge it within yourself. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. I have reached a point where I no longer feel the need to apologize for my moments of silence. If this resonates with you, consider subscribing to Psychic. Here, we shift from merely performing to genuinely becoming who we are meant to be. Remember, your quietness is not a sign of weakness, rather, it is the foundation from which your authentic self emerges.